Perhaps I like Louis Armstrong because he's made poetry out of being invisible. I think it's because he's unaware that he is invisible, and my own grasp of invisibility aids me to understand his music. The reason the unnamed narrator likes Armstrong so much is because he plays and sings without knowing about his invisibility. The narrator, on the other hand, does know about his invisibility, which is why he's able to understand Armstrong's music. The narrator states that he is, in fact, real but invisible because people refuse to see him for who he really is. The Harlem Renaissance began in 1920, and Invisible Man by Ralph Ellison was originally published in 1952, meaning the novel was written after the Harlem Renaissance had begun to fade away as a cultural movement. Chronologically making sense that one of the most prominent moments in American history for African Americans was followed by a book that dealt with African Americans' virtual invisibility, or in other words, their fading cultural power. I want you to go to New York for the summer and save your pride and your money. You go there and earn your next year's fees, understand? I was sitting in a cold, white, rigid chair, and a man was looking at me out of a bright third eye that glowed from the center of his forehead. Traditional jazz songs contain core chords that serve as the base of the music, which is why musicians who have never played together are able to perform together effortlessly. Louis Armstrong demonstrated great dexterity as an improviser, bending the lyrics and melody of a song for expressive purposes. This bass makes every individual performance unique and with its own touch by each performer. The unpredictability of each performance directly correlates to the unpredictability of the unnamed narrator's life. Then somehow I came out of it, ascending hastily from this underworld of sound to hear Louis Armstrong innocently asking, "What did I do to be so black and blue?" Louis Armstrong was known for performing alone, similar to the lifestyle of the narrator, who secretly lives for free in a shut-off section of a basement, stealing electricity from the company to light his 1369 bulbs.
The block leaped alive. Men who seemed to rise up out of the sidewalks were rushing into the storefronts above me, their voices rising excitedly. The accelerating nature of the action is similar to how jazz musicians accelerate their speed and pitch within their music. Their riffs jump seemingly out of nowhere and hit hard. So under the spell of the reefer, I discovered a new analytical way of listening to music. The unheard sounds came through, and each melodic line existed of itself, stood out clearly from all the rest, said its piece, and waited patiently for the other voices to speak. This way of listening is identical to how jazz musicians play their music. Each instrument gets a solo in the song, which may include trumpet, saxophone, drum, and vocals. "The brother does not sing," Brother Jack roared staccato. "Nonsense. All colored people sing." For years in New Orleans, most slaves would meet on Sundays to sing the music of their heritage. Other music styles mixed in, creating more forms of music. This cultural gumbo would serve as breeding ground for many of the great hybrid musics of modern times. Not just jazz, but also Cajun, Zydeco, blues, and other new styles flourished as a result of this laissez-faire environment.
That time I luckily sent the rugs sliding out of place and heard the coins ringing against the floor and the boys scuffling to pick them up. The narrator takes control in the coin scene, which shows how he is trying to find a way to get to his end goal, which is to present his speech. This is similar to a jazz musician because the overall goal for the musician is to take control to present their end work. In this case, their end work would be their song. The knocking had gone beyond mere protest over heatlessness now. They had fallen into a ragged Roomba rhythm. Knock, 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 knock. Knock, 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 vibrating the very floor. This quote shows a rhythmic pattern of knocks, which symbolizes how the use of music in the novel can represent everyday events, such as the knocking in the segment of the novel. So that is the meaning of discipline, I thought. Sacrifice. Yes, and blindness. He doesn't see me. He doesn't even see me. The swing era of jazz occurred from 1935 through 1945. In a big band, there are four major sections: the saxophone section, the trumpet section, the trombone section, and the rhythm section that consists of piano, guitar, drums, and a string bass. These four sections reflect four major areas of the Invisible Man's life: his hometown, the college, Harlem, and eventually the room underground. In big band jazz, the melody is played in unison, like how the Invisible Man is part of the crowd with no true identity and is seen as invisible, which he realizes when he states that Brother Jack doesn't even see me. Of course Louis was kidding. He wouldn't have thrown Old Bad Air out, because it would have broken up the music and the dance, when it was the good music that came from the bell of Old Bad Air's horn that counted. Time and music are continuous throughout the Invisible Man's life. Life keeps moving on and evolving, just like jazz music. When things pop up, you need to find a way to power through it. Just like when you can't find the right melody for a song, you just need to keep trying until you are successful.